Most people believe weak legs are the price we pay for getting older, but science tells a far more hopeful and almost unsettling truth. Your legs are not failing you, they are waiting for the right signal. Strength does not disappear with age. It goes quiet when the brain, the nerves, and the muscles stop speaking clearly to one another. The moment that conversation is restored, even after 60, the body begins to remember how to stand tall, how to feel steady, how to generate power without strain, and what you are about to hear may permanently change how you think about aging, movement, and what your legs are still capable of becoming. Most people assume that leg strength fades simply because the years pass, as if age itself were a direct cause of weakness, but biology tells a more precise and far more hopeful story. Muscles do not suddenly forget how to work because a birthday arrives. What changes first is the quality of communication between the brain and the muscles, a process shaped by use, attention, and repetition. The nervous system is the true conductor of movement, and when signals become less frequent or less refined, muscles respond by becoming quieter, not weaker by destiny, but weaker by disuse. This distinction matters deeply because what is lost through silence can often be restored through conversation. As people move less confidently with age, they unknowingly begin to avoid complexity in motion. Steps become shorter, turns become cautious, and weight shifts are minimized. From a neurological perspective, this simplifies the language of movement. Fewer signals are sent, fewer corrections are made, and fewer muscle fibers are recruited. Over time, the brain starts to assume that the legs are no longer required to perform precise tasks. In response, it reduces the priority of those neural pathways. This is not decay in the dramatic sense, but adaptation. The body is always adapting to what it believes is necessary for survival. Scientific studies on motor units show that strength loss in older adults is closely linked to reduced neural drive rather than muscle mass alone. In simpler terms, the muscles are still there, but fewer of them are being asked to participate. Fast, careless movement does not solve this problem, because speed can bypass awareness. What the aging body needs is clarity. Slow, deliberate movement forces the brain to re-engage with the legs, sending richer and more frequent signals. Each controlled motion is like restoring a forgotten line of communication. There's also the matter of trust. The brain constantly evaluates risk. When balance feels uncertain, the brain responds by limiting force output in the legs as a protective measure. This is why many older adults feel weaker not only physically but emotionally in their movement. The fear of falling subtly suppresses strength. Chinese movement traditions, though developed without modern neuroscience, intuitively address this by emphasizing stability, grounding, and gradual shifts of weight. When the brain senses safety, it allows strength to emerge again. Another overlooked factor is sensory decline. The soles of the feet, the ankles, and the knees are rich with sensory receptors that inform the brain about pressure and position. With age and inactivity, these receptors become less sensitive, not because they are damaged, but because they are understimulated. Walking on flat surfaces at a constant pace does little to challenge them. In contrast, slow changes in stance, gentle knee bends, and controlled balance awaken these sensors. As sensory input improves, the brain gains a clearer map of the legs, and strength becomes more coordinated. From a physiological standpoint, muscles thrive on intention as much as effort. Research on motor learning demonstrates that mindful movement increases cortical activation, even when physical intensity is low. This means that when attention is directed toward how a movement feels, the brain lights up in areas responsible for control and adaptation. Over time, this leads to improved recruitment of muscle fibers and more efficient movement patterns. Strength, in this sense, is not just produced by muscles but organized by the nervous system. Aging also affects timing. Younger bodies rely on quick reflexes, but as reflex speed decreases, stability must come from anticipation rather than reaction. Traditional Chinese exercises slow movement intentionally, giving the brain time to predict and adjust. This trains a different form of strength, one rooted in preparedness rather than speed. Modern biomechanics confirms that anticipatory control reduces joint stress and improves force distribution across muscles. The legs become strong not because they push harder, but because they work together more intelligently. There is compassion embedded in this approach. It does not blame the body for aging, nor does it demand that older adults move like younger ones. Instead, it acknowledges that the nervous system changes and offers it a new way to engage. When movement becomes exploratory rather than aggressive, the body responds with cooperation. Muscles begin to activate in harmony, joints feel supported, and confidence returns gradually, often before visible strength improvements appear. Perhaps the most powerful realization is that strength after 60 is not something to be reclaimed from the past, but something to be reorganized in the present. The body is not broken. It is waiting for clearer instructions. When movement is slow enough to be felt, balanced enough to feel safe, and intentional enough to be meaningful, the brain reopens pathways it had quietly deprioritized. The legs respond not with strain, but with steadiness. And what emerges is not just physical power, but a renewed sense of agency in the body itself. Traditional Chinese exercises approach leg strength from a perspective that feels almost unfamiliar in the modern world, because they do not begin with the idea of overpowering the body, but with the idea of restoring relationships within it. These movements were shaped by careful observation of how humans stand, shift, bend, and recover across a lifetime. Rather than isolating muscles, they focus on how muscles, tendons, joints, and the nervous system cooperate. Modern science now gives language to what these traditions understood intuitively, revealing why such exercises remain remarkably effective for restoring leg strength after 60. One of the central elements in these practices is the emphasis on tendons rather than muscles alone. Tendons transmit force and store elastic energy, and unlike muscle mass, they remain highly adaptable with age when stimulated correctly. Slow, controlled movements place gentle tension on tendons, encouraging them to become more resilient and responsive. Research in connective tissue physiology shows that tendons respond best to sustained, low-intensity loading, not sudden force. This explains why gradual weight shifts and controlled knee bends can rebuild functional strength more reliably than aggressive exercise in older adults. Balance is another cornerstone, not as a performance skill, but as a biological necessity. Balance training activates deep stabilizing muscles in the hips, knees, and ankles, muscles that are often bypassed during simple walking or machine-based workouts. These stabilizers play a crucial role in force transfer and joint protection. When they are underused, larger muscles must compensate, leading to fatigue and instability. Chinese movement systems constantly challenge balance in subtle ways, forcing the body to coordinate from the ground up. Neuroscience confirms that such challenges strengthen the neural networks responsible for postural control, which in turn allows the legs to express strength with greater efficiency. The pace of these exercises is deliberate, and this slowness is not symbolic, but strategic. Slow movement increases time under tension, which stimulates muscle fibers most resistant to age-related decline. It also gives the brain time to process sensory feedback from joints and muscles. Studies on motor control show that slower speeds enhance accuracy in learning, particularly in older adults. When movement is rushed, errors are masked by momentum. When movement is slow, every imbalance becomes information, and the nervous system adapts accordingly. Another distinguishing feature is the integration of breath with movement. Controlled breathing influences the autonomic nervous system, shifting the body away from stress and toward recovery. When the nervous system is calm, muscle activation becomes smoother and more coordinated. Scientific research has demonstrated that slow, rhythmic breathing improves oxygen delivery, reduces unnecessary muscle tension, and enhances endurance. In this state, the legs can work longer without fatigue, allowing strength to build through consistency rather than intensity. These exercises also respect joint mechanics. Instead of forcing joints into extreme ranges, they operate with a natural, pain-free motion. This protects cartilage while encouraging synovial fluid circulation, which nourishes the joint surfaces. Aging joints often feel stiff, not because they are damaged, but because they are undermoved or moved too aggressively. Gentle, repetitive motion restores lubrication and reduces friction. Orthopedic science supports this approach, showing that moderate, controlled movement preserves joint health better than both inactivity and high-impact stress. Equally important is the mental dimension. Traditional Chinese exercises require attention, patience, and presence. This cognitive engagement activates brain regions associated with planning and coordination. Research in neuroplasticity shows that such engagement enhances learning and retention of motor skills. Strength gained this way is not easily lost, because it is encoded not just in muscle tissue, but in neural patterns. The body remembers how to move well even after short breaks, because the brain has reorganized itself around these movements. There is also a social and emotional component embedded in these traditions. Movements are often taught in a way that encourages self-awareness rather than competition. This reduces performance anxiety, which can otherwise inhibit physical expression. When people feel safe and unjudged, they move more freely. The nervous system interprets this freedom as a signal that strength can be used without risk. Over time, this creates a positive feedback loop where confidence and physical capability reinforce each other. Perhaps what makes these exercises most powerful is that they redefine what strength means. Strength is not measured by how much weight the legs can lift, but by how reliably they can support daily life. Standing up from a chair, navigating uneven ground, or maintaining balance during a sudden stop all require coordinated strength. Traditional Chinese movements train exactly these capacities by mimicking real-life demands in a controlled environment. Modern functional movement research supports this, showing that training patterns similar to daily tasks improves real-world mobility more effectively than isolated strength training. When viewed through the lens of science, these ancient practices appear less mysterious and more practical. They align with what we now understand about aging muscles, connective tissue, neural adaptation, and joint health. They succeed not by fighting the aging process, but by working with it, restoring the body's internal dialogue step by step. The result is leg strength that feels natural, stable, and trustworthy, emerging not from force, but from harmony within the body. Low impact. Mindful movement is often misunderstood as gentle to the point of being ineffective. Yet biology reveals that the body responds to quality of stimulation more than quantity of force, especially after 60. When movement is aggressive, fast, or repetitive without variation, the nervous system tends to simplify control, relying on momentum and large muscle groups. This can create the illusion of activity while leaving circulation, joint nutrition, and neural coordination understimulated. In contrast, slow and attentive movement invites the body into a state of active participation where multiple systems are engaged simultaneously, and this integration is what leads to lasting leg strength. Circulation is not driven only by the heart, but also by the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of muscles. When movements are small, controlled, and continuous, they act like a pump, especially in the lower limbs where blood must travel upward against gravity. Many older adults experience sluggish circulation in the legs, not because their hearts are weak, but because their muscles no longer contract in varied and deliberate patterns. Mindful exercises restore this pumping action. Scientific studies show that slow resistance and sustained muscle engagement improve venous return and capillary function more effectively than brief bursts of high-intensity activity. Joint health is equally dependent on movement quality. Cartilage has no direct blood supply and relies on compression and release to receive nutrients through synovial fluid. High-impact movement can overload joints while insufficient movement starves them. Low-impact exercises that move joints through comfortable ranges provide the ideal stimulus. Each slow bend of the knee or controlled shift of weight nourishes the joint surfaces. Over time, stiffness decreases not because joints are forced open, but because they are gently reminded of their natural function. Nerve signaling is another critical piece. Aging does not significantly damage nerves, but it does reduce how often they are used in complex patterns. Walking, while beneficial, becomes habitual and neurologically simple. The brain predicts the movement and sends minimal instruction. Mindful movement disrupts this automation. When balance is challenged and motion is slow, the brain must constantly update its commands. This increases neural firing and strengthens synaptic connections. Research in motor neuroscience confirms that such variability enhances neuroplasticity, allowing older adults to regain coordination and strength. There is also an energetic efficiency in mindful movement that modern exercise often overlooks. When the body is tense, energy is wasted in unnecessary muscle activation. Stress hormones increase, breathing becomes shallow, and fatigue sets in quickly. Low-impact exercises performed with awareness reduce this inefficiency. By coordinating breath and movement, the body enters a parasympathetic state that supports endurance and recovery. Muscles work longer without strain, allowing strength to build gradually through consistency rather than exhaustion. Tendons and ligaments respond particularly well to slow loading. Unlike muscles, which adapt quickly, connective tissues require time under tension to remodel. Sudden or heavy loads can exceed their tolerance, increasing injury risk. Mindful movement applies gentle stress that stimulates collagen alignment and elasticity. This improves force transmission from muscle to bone, making movements feel lighter and more controlled. Sports medicine research supports this approach, showing that slow resistance training improves tendon health even in older populations. Balance and coordination also depend on sensory integration. The body constantly collects information from the eyes, inner ear, and proprioceptors in muscles and joints. When movement is rushed, this information is ignored. When movement is slow, the brain has time to integrate these signals. This enhances stability and reduces the likelihood of missteps. Over time, the legs become not only stronger, but more reliable, capable of responding to unexpected challenges in daily life. Psychologically, mindful movement changes the relationship people have with their bodies. Instead of pushing through discomfort, individuals learn to listen. This reduces fear and increases confidence, which directly influences physical performance. The brain is more willing to recruit strength when it perceives safety. Studies in psychophysiology show that reduced anxiety improves motor output and coordination. In this way, gentle movement can unlock strength that was previously suppressed by caution or fear. Perhaps most importantly, low-impact mindful exercises are sustainable. They do not demand recovery periods that discourage consistency. Strength built slowly but regularly integrates into daily function. Climbing stairs, standing from a chair, or maintaining balance while turning become easier, not because of dramatic muscle growth, but because the entire system works together more effectively. Science increasingly recognizes that integrated movement, rather than isolated exertion, is the key to maintaining mobility and independence in later life. When viewed through this lens, mindful movement is not a compromise, but a refinement. It respects the body's changing needs while activating its inherent capacity to adapt. Circulation improves, joints receive nourishment, nerves regain clarity, and confidence returns. The legs grow strong not through force, but through intelligent, attentive motion that honors how the human body truly functions as it ages after 60. Strength is often misunderstood as something that must be forced back into the body, as if power were measured only by how much resistance the legs can overcome. Yet physiology reveals a quieter truth. Strength at this stage of life emerges less from raw force and more from how well the body can organize itself under load. Control, alignment, and time under gentle tension become the primary drivers of functional power. When these elements are present, the legs regain their ability to support, stabilize, and propel the body without strain. Control begins in the nervous system. Muscles do not act independently, they respond to instructions. When movement is rushed, the brain defaults to simplified patterns, relying on momentum rather than precision. This reduces the involvement of smaller stabilizing muscles that protect joints and coordinate force. Slow, controlled movement requires the brain to continuously adjust, activating more motor units and refining timing. Research in neuromuscular science shows that controlled contractions improve muscle recruitment efficiency, allowing strength to be expressed with less effort. Alignment plays a critical role in how force travels through the body. Poor alignment causes stress to concentrate in vulnerable areas such as the knees or lower back. Over time, this leads to discomfort and further limits movement. Traditional Chinese exercises emphasize vertical stacking of joints, ensuring that weight passes through bones rather than straining soft tissues. Biomechanics confirms that proper alignment reduces joint compression and shear forces. When the body is aligned, even modest muscle activation can produce significant functional strength. Time under tension is another essential factor. Muscles and tendons respond to sustained engagement by adapting structurally and neurologically. Short, explosive efforts may build power in younger bodies, but they often overwhelm aging tissues. Gentle tension held over longer durations stimulates slow twitch muscle fibers, which are more resistant to age-related decline. These fibers support endurance and postural stability, both crucial for daily activities. Exercise physiology studies show that prolonged, low-intensity contractions improve muscle quality without excessive fatigue. There is also a metabolic aspect to this approach. Controlled movement allows muscles to rely more on oxidative energy systems, which are efficient and sustainable. This reduces the accumulation of metabolic byproducts that cause discomfort and fatigue. As a result, individuals can practice more frequently, reinforcing neural pathways and strengthening tissues gradually. Consistency rather than intensity becomes the primary driver of progress. Alignment and control also influence balance. When the body moves as a coordinated unit, balance corrections become subtle and efficient. The legs do not need to generate sudden bursts of force to prevent a fall. Instead, they make small adjustments that maintain stability. Research on fall prevention highlights that balance training emphasizing slow shifts and controlled positions significantly reduces fall risk. Strength in this context is the ability to remain upright and composed, not to overpower gravity. Another important consideration is joint health. Gentle tension applied with proper alignment nourishes joints by encouraging synovial fluid circulation without causing inflammation. This maintains cartilage integrity and reduces stiffness. Aggressive loading can irritate joints, leading to avoidance behaviors that further weaken the legs. Controlled movement creates a positive cycle where joints feel safer, encouraging continued use and strengthening. Psychologically, this approach fosters confidence. When movements are slow and controlled, individuals experience success rather than struggle. This reinforces a sense of capability, which directly influences motor output. The brain is more willing to engage muscles fully when it perceives competence and safety. Over time, this confidence translates into smoother, stronger movement patterns in daily life. Perhaps the most profound shift is the redefinition of effort. Instead of striving to push harder, the focus becomes maintaining quality throughout each movement. This requires patience and awareness, qualities that align naturally with the aging process. Scientific research on motor learning indicates that attention to movement quality enhances retention and transfer of skills. Strength gained this way is deeply integrated, supporting real-world function rather than isolated performance. In embracing control, alignment, and time under gentle tension, the body is allowed to adapt at its own pace. Muscles grow stronger, tendons become more resilient, and joints remain healthy. The legs regain their role as reliable supports for the body, not through forceful exertion, but through intelligent, deliberate movement that honors the wisdom of both biology and lived experience. When movement is performed with awareness, something subtle yet profound begins to change inside the body. Strength is no longer experienced as a blunt output of muscle force, but as a coordinated expression of confidence, balance, and intention. The nervous system, which quietly governs every motion, responds differently when attention is present. Instead of issuing vague commands, the brain sends precise, refined signals, allowing muscles to activate in harmony rather than competition. This internal coherence is what allows strength to feel stable and trustworthy, especially after 60. Awareness transforms how the brain interprets movement. Rather than reacting automatically, the mind becomes engaged in sensing position, pressure, and rhythm. Neuroscience shows that attentive movement increases activity in cortical regions responsible for planning and error correction. This means the brain is not just directing the legs, but learning from them. Each repetition becomes an opportunity to refine coordination. Over time, this learning process restores confidence as movements feel predictable and controllable rather than uncertain or risky. Confidence itself is a biological factor. When the brain perceives threat or instability, it suppresses muscle output to protect the body. This protective inhibition often masquerades as weakness. Mindful movement counters this by creating a sense of safety. Slow transitions, controlled weight shifts, and deliberate pauses signal to the nervous system that the environment is manageable. Research in motor control confirms that reduced fear enhances muscle activation and improves balance. As confidence grows, the brain permits greater strength to emerge naturally. Stability is built from the ground up. Awareness brings attention to the feet, the subtle distribution of weight across the soles, and the micro adjustments at the ankles. These details are often ignored in fast or habitual movement, yet they are essential for balance. Proprioceptive receptors in the feet and legs relay this information to the brain, sharpening its internal map of the body. With a clearer map, the nervous system can coordinate muscles more effectively. Stability, in this sense, is not rigid, but responsive, allowing the legs to adapt smoothly to changes. Functional strength differs from isolated power. It is the ability to rise from a chair, to pause on one leg while stepping, or to recover balance when unexpected forces appear. Mindful movement trains these capabilities directly by mimicking the demands of daily life. The brain learns not just how much force to produce, but when and where to apply it. Studies in functional movement science show that such task-specific training improves real-world mobility more effectively than traditional strength exercises. There is also an emotional dimension to awareness. Moving with attention fosters a sense of respect for the body's signals. Pain and discomfort are not ignored, but interpreted. This reduces the likelihood of overexertion injury. When the body is treated as a partner rather than an obstacle, adherence improves. People are more likely to continue practices that feel supportive rather than punishing. Consistency allows adaptations to accumulate, reinforcing strength and stability over time. Awareness also enhances energy efficiency. Muscles unnecessary for a task remain relaxed, conserving energy. Breathing becomes synchronized with movement, supporting oxygen delivery and reducing tension. This efficiency allows longer practice sessions without fatigue. Exercise physiology research supports the idea that coordinated breathing and movement improve endurance and delay fatigue. As a result, strength develops gradually but sustainably. Another subtle benefit is the restoration of agency. Aging can sometimes feel like a loss of control over one's own body. Mindful movement reverses this narrative. Each deliberate motion reaffirms the ability to choose how to move. This psychological empowerment has tangible physical effects. The brain becomes more engaged, motivation increases, and the willingness to explore movement grows. Neuroplasticity thrives on curiosity and engagement, leading to lasting changes in motor patterns. Over time, awareness reshapes habits. Movements practiced with attention influence how the body moves outside of exercise. Standing posture improves, steps become more deliberate, and balance corrections become instinctive. Strength is no longer something that appears only during practice, but something woven into daily life. The legs respond with reliability, supporting the body through varied tasks without conscious effort. Ultimately, mindful movement reveals that strength after 60 is not about reclaiming youth, but about cultivating wisdom within the body. It integrates confidence, stability, and function into a unified experience. The muscles respond, the joints cooperate, and the nervous system adapts. What emerges is a form of strength that feels grounded and enduring, reflecting not just physical capacity, but a deeper relationship with movement itself.